DNA is what then drives the organization forward. So if the DNA itself has innovation, passion, and attention to detail built in, then every new thing that company does, the DNA will take care of it. Be a rebel, be rebellious, question everything. In my case, that's the pursuit of Indian food and putting it on the global palate.
A very good afternoon to all my guests across the continent. Thank you for joining in. We have a very, very, very special guest for today's show, Mr. Zorawar Kalra, who has redefined the dining out art of this country, perfecting the science of molecular gastronomy with India's spice and flavor. Mr. Zorawar is the name that commands respect in the Indian hospitality industry. He's the founder and managing director of Massive Restaurants, which owns brands like Masala Library, Papaya, Farzi Café, made in Punjab, an unique Asian eatery called Hotel ShangHigh, and also a delicacy called Bow Tie. He has hosted the season 5 of MasterChef India. Mr. Zorawar Kalra is the first restaurateur to be facilitated as the Restaurateur of the Year award at GQ Men of the Year 2017. A very, very welcome, Mr. Kalra, for my show. It's a pleasure and honor to host you.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to be here.
Same here. Massive Restaurants have created its niche and distinguished space across the top brands like Made in Punjab, Masala Library, Farzi Café, and many more. Would love to know the journey, what has inspired you to take a deep dive into the Indian cuisine to bring it up to the global level?
You know, Indian cuisine has always been something that's very, very close to my heart. My father spent 35 years of his life recording and perfecting and documenting Indian cuisine, and he devoted his whole life to his beloved Indian cuisine. He also gave me a sense of great responsibility towards it. And I think from as far back as I can remember, I have seen him type away on his keyboard, go to chefs, go to home cooks, and collect some of the best recipes from around the country. He truly believed, and as do I, that Indian food is the greatest cuisine in the Indian cuisine is the greatest cuisine in the world, with a culinary depth and philosophy that is unparalleled. In fact, I would say that Indian cuisine is the only cuisine in the world with a deep culinary philosophy that goes back millennia, which means thousands of years. And I think we all have, or at least should have, a sense of responsibility to ensure that it gets its right position across global cuisines from around the world, because it is truly that level of sophistication and variety that is existent, and that we need to bring to the forefront and proclaim, with pride, our position as one of the top cuisines of the world. So I think why my father started Indian food is because he had a deep level of passion and love for it, and I got it from him. So that's why most of our restaurants revolve around Indian food. The journey, obviously, for me, and everybody's journey is very private and very individual. Mine started because of my father. He was building great restaurants. He was writing books. He was deeply involved in Indian cuisine, and through him, I got this, sense of love towards restauranting. And as far back as I can remember, I can probably say from before I was even a teenager, I always wanted to be just a restaurateur and nothing else. And so I can say that pretty much from that time on, that is 12, 13 years old, I've been molding myself to get into the industry, to try and put Indian food on the global palate, to really do, my bit towards propagating Indian food. So I think that's how the journey started. Obviously, we're now doing a lot of other cuisines, but Indian food remains the core essence, the soul and heart of Massive Restaurants, and will always be like that.
I know, this has been what a divine, and maybe the feel of the divinity of the taste bud which you get in the Indian cuisine. I think that's sort of outstanding. And giving to the global aura to it, I think it makes it all the more significant, which you're trying to do. Thank you for sharing that journey. I heard you, saying somewhere in one of the interview that it is an extremely competitive market where 90% of the restaurants shut down within the first year and 96% maybe within the first 18 months. Knowing the fact, you jumped onto the business as a first generation entrepreneur and built it up so successfully. How did you innovate and curate this idea of globalizing Indian cuisine? And what did you do so differently that kind of made you stand out in the crowd?
Well, firstly, I did not know this stat when I started out. I did not know that 90% of restaurants shut down within the first year. If I had known, I'd probably not have started. No, I'm joking. I definitely did not know about the stats when I started the business. It was more about passion. Whenever you pursue an initiative with passion, or any business or any work with passion, you will never work another day because you're enjoying every single moment. So for me, I didn't even care. Even if I knew this stat, I would have still only done restaurants because that's all that I was truly and deeply passionate about. That being said, yes, the restaurant business is highly competitive. But like I said, lucky is the man that can figure out what he loves and then figure out a way to make money from it, right? Because we all need to make money to survive. But you first have to love what you do, your craft, your passion. And if you can make that your business or your profession, then you're very lucky. So I think, yes, some of the stats you mentioned are true, but restauranting is also about deep optimism. And I think if you are a restaurateur, by definition, you are deeply optimistic because of the stats you just mentioned. You have only a 10% chance of success. And if you're still jumping into it, that means that you're a deeply optimistic person. And I think I personally always see the glass as half full. I've always been an optimistic person. I don't see unnecessary negativity, and I try and avoid it, and I try and push that away. Because the moment you let the negative thoughts come in, it's going to make you question your moves. And entrepreneurship in general, not just for restaurants, entrepreneurship in general is all about jumping off a cliff and building an aircraft on the way down. It's about dealing with problems as they come, but first taking the plunge. And taking the plunge is what passion will help you, take first. So I think, all businesses have their ups and downs. Ours tends to have a very high failure rate because the barriers to entry are low, because there is a unique aspect of undercapitalization that creeps in. So it is a tough business, but it's also deeply, deeply rewarding. So anybody who's watching, who wants to get into it, my only suggestion would be that don't get into it for the glamour or for the perceived glamour, I would say. There is no glamour. It just looks very glamorous from the outside, but there isn't any glamour. Get into it for the right reasons. Get into it if you're truly passionate about the food, or about restauranting in general, or about a location that you've got, or about a concept. But don't get into it as an extension of your drawing room. Don't get into it because you think it's a cool thing to do. Because when you get into it, you'll realize that the coolness is very, very limited, and there's a lot of hard work, a lot of patience, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Very well said. When the passion becomes obsession and that becomes your career, I think it is the win-win situation for all of us. So, on that note, thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, is all the passion which takes over, and then you jump onto wherever you want to. You actually see the success road lead to you. My next question, Mr. Zorawar, thank you. I've been really enjoying this conversation. I just wanted to understand what has been your first business venture you tried out. And most of the people say that, generally the first 3-4 business venture fails before you really see the taste of success. So I would like to know, what is that first business you tried out, and what was the learning you had that helped you to create this global brand?
You're making me take a journey down memory lane, and it is, yes, a lot of successful entrepreneurs do have failures at the outset, in the beginning. I'm not sure if I'm successful or not, but I definitely had my first venture in the food business was not very successful. It was a small cart concept I had created. You know, those small kiosks that are there at the sides of roads, small carts that are placed across other restaurants. So I literally started this concept called the Paratha Company. And it was all about the Lucknowi galauti kebab, which is my favorite dish in the whole world. And my father was responsible for getting it out of the, being lost and creating a renaissance around it. Now galauti is present on most menus or most good menus across the country and is one of the most famous kebabs. But it was being relegated to the bylanes of Lucknow and not coming out into the forefront, not being recognized for the greatness that it represented. So I think the concept was very ambitious, for sure. My idea was to open thousands of carts across the country and serve really good galauti kebabs on the street side. But I realized soon that it's not for me, because quality control on a street side with thousands of units is very difficult. There's so many things to deal with. You don't have any great real estate. I was literally piggy banking off other retail stores and placing my cart in the front, or I was placing my cart on streets. Very often it was not legal to do so. And you can't build a big business where the very basics are questionable or are in a gray area. Locations were hard to come by. Biggest problem was quality control. Some carts were serving food at the right temperature, some weren't. There was a food safety issue. And I had a big name legacy of my father to uphold. So there's no way that I could take a chance with his name over carts on the roadside, even though I still think it's a great business model and I would still like to get into it should I find the time. But Paratha Company was one of those ventures that truly begun my entrepreneurial journey. Why I remember it being the start is because that's the first time that I put my business ahead of myself. Till that time, it was all about me, taking care of myself, going to the gym every day, eating right, all that. When that business opened, I put the business ahead of myself. I stopped going to the gym, stopped sleeping properly, took on all the stress that a new business entails, and yet I enjoyed it thoroughly. I enjoyed it so much that I knew at that time that the life of an entrepreneur, though full of trials and tribulations, is still the one for me. And so it started me on my journey. And yes, it doesn't exist anymore, but the brand still exists. I own the brand. And I think I might open a few just for nostalgia purposes. And I think it might become big because the idea was really, really sound fundamentally. The Indian real estate scenario and the personnel scenario, the shared manpower scenario wasn't supportive of it. But yeah, it was a fun concept. It was good while it lasted.
When did you start that? Which year was it? Is it like very early?
6. No, even earlier, 2004 or 5. I can't remember clearly. I know I have it documented somewhere, but I can't remember it offhand. I think it was 2005. I got back from the US from doing my MBA in 2004. So it couldn't have been in 2004. I think it was 2005 when I started these small. I opened quite a few of them, 7, 8 of them across Delhi, NCR, Gurgaon, Delhi, Noida. We even opened a couple in Lucknow. But it was just not something that I was able to do justice to my father's legacy in that format. The product was fantastic while, whichever carts were able to execute it properly, but it was not something that I could see myself doing long term.
But it is good try. I think that sort of give you a little clarity what you want
to do. That was cheap to start, right?
Yeah,
it's cheaper than opening a restaurant.
Build capital and then you can just get going, and that, of course. But did you also start something like really during school, college days? Because of your passion on the food or seeing your dad, did you sort of had something like small?
No, I was a late bloomer. I was a late bloomer. I was not the kind of, serial entrepreneur that I am now. I was not the guy who would figure out a way to make money while in school, buying lemonade for $1 and then selling it for $2. No, I couldn't do that. But that instinct, I guess, bloomed in my mind later. So now it's there, full-fledged, lodged deep within my psyche. But I was not a guy who started that early on the entrepreneurial journey. But I was definitely a guy who knew very early on that that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I had a problem with authority. I did not listen to my parents or my teachers. So I knew that there's no way that I would listen to a boss. So I decided very early on that it's not going to work. And my father actually was distressed about that. He wanted me to get a nice job, do something in a big company, become as all fathers do, become a doctor or a lawyer or a scientist. He actually wanted me to become a marine biologist for some reason, because he wanted to become that. So he thought if I couldn't become one, let's make him. And I had no interest in that. The only marine aspect of life that I enjoyed was watching Shark Week on Discovery Channel. So I didn't really care about any other aspect of marine biology. So I don't know why you wanted me to become that. But in general, I think, life chooses a path for you to some extent. Yes, you have a big part to play in choosing where you want to go, but sometimes circumstance forces and timelines force you to take certain paths that then, for better or for worse, end up adjudicating and defining your career going down the line.
Zorawar, I've been listening to your every coined words, and it is so beautifully articulated. You could have been a great news broadcaster too. On the other note, but
No, I believe in saying the truth.
And you say it very rightful.
I wouldn't be a good news broadcaster.
Honesty, always, your passion, your drive, your honesty, and the rebel attitude which you had from childhood, I think defined you the way you are today. So, ladies and gentlemen, being a bloomer, that matters. Whether the late or early doesn't matter. It is when you want to take it on and give your full-hearted effort into it. I think the rest follows automatically. Thank you so much. On that note, I would love to jump on my next question. I heard in one of your interview that you said the restaurant industry contributes over 2% of the country's GDP and probably the second most employable sector post agriculture. How did that COVID has impacted the sector, and what is your suggestion to the restaurant owners of the country who's struggling currently?
Well, COVID has impacted our sector worse than any other, along with aviation and hospitality in general. Restaurants are, anyway, as we've already discussed, a very tough business. The COVID has completely put us, on our knees, and the industry will take some time to recover. But I think the industry is very resilient. But the second lockdown has had an even deeper effect. You had 30% closures of really high quality, good restaurants across the industry in the first lockdown. 30% of them never reopened, did not have the capital to reopen. This second one is going to have perhaps an even bigger impact. And the bigger problem is not just the fact that a lot of restaurants will not reopen. The problem is the ones that do reopen will face a slower period of recovery, is what our fear is. Obviously, nobody has a crystal ball. I'm hoping that I'm wrong about this and that the recovery is faster. But because the demographic that has been affected in the second wave, which is, the people under 45, and people under 45 are the ones that go out to restaurants most often. Because they have been affected, there's a sense of fear that is built up in their minds, and that fear will take some time to be alleviated. Vaccination is the way forward. Vaccination on a war footing is a way forward. And my advice to all restaurateurs that are facing this, as my brethren and as my comrades, I would say that hang in there. The next 2 months will be hard, no doubt. They'll be very hard. They'll be existential in nature, in the sense that your existence will be called into question. But come November and December, mark my words when I say this, it'll be the absolute best period of your restauranting life in terms of revenue. There will not be a single resort, there will not be a single restaurant in India that'll have to fight for business come November and December. It'll be the best period. So just hang in there. Try and survive the next 2-3 months. Cut down your costs. Look at every cost item. All our employees are willing to understand the problems. They're willing to work with us. Customers are becoming a lot more accommodating. Very often, landlords are also listening. If you have built a good relation with them over the past few years, they will listen and hopefully be amicable. But the fact is that the next 2 months are going to be tough, and some of you might shut down. But I'm hoping and praying that you don't have to shut down, and that somehow you're able to get together the capital and the will to survive the next few months. Because come November and December, you guys will be smiling from ear to ear, and this business will be back with a bang like you've never seen before.
We are just waiting to go out and dine out. We have been I think the first thing everybody will do once it opens. Yes, I think very valuable piece of advice. Just hang in there.
I just want to add one more thing. The only way for our industry to recover, and like I said, and like you said, I've said before that over 2% of India's GDP is the 5th largest economy in the world, $2.9 trillion economy, and we contribute between 2 and 3%, and the second largest employer of human capital in India after agriculture. I think it's time that the authorities start looking at us as an industry that needs help. There has to be some kind of a stimulus package been given to us. We are one of the worst hit. If we are one of the worst hit, we should be one of the first ones that should be getting some form of a stimulus package. And I think now it's really badly needed. Not just, companies like mine might still be able to scrounge around capital to survive. But what happens to the smaller players? What happens to the mom and pop shops? I think the next stimulus package that hopefully authorities announce should involve a huge package, or at least some form of a stimulus for us, and hopefully monetary in nature, because that's what's needed. President Joe Biden said that if the industry or the economy of the US is to survive, restaurants will play a key role and deserve a seat on the table. And that's all we're asking for, is a seat on the table. So I hope that the authorities assist us, because we need that for our survival.
Absolutely. And I think this is being the second largest employable sector, and it's been one of the worst hit. Absolutely. I think government will hopefully take the right call, because you have been this business has been the worst hit, to be honest. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts and insights. I wanted to know, Zorawar, that, I've been observing and, really very keenly observing. I've seen your father, late Mr. Jiggs Kalra, was an extraordinary journalist. He was known as the Czar of Indian cuisine and a very, very renowned food critic. Did your love for food business come from seeing your father's inspiration, or was it there imbibed in you somehow?
100%. 110%. Everything. My love for the business only grew because I saw what he did. I was always in awe of my father, as most kids are, but I was very close to him, and he had a major influence on what I wanted to do. Like I said, in my pre-teen years, so before I was even a teenager, because of the business he was in, because of the line of work he was in, I was deeply enthralled by it, and I was deeply attracted to it. So my love for food has entirely stemmed from my experiences with him, and because of him, because I saw what he did, I found it very cool. He was going around the world, writing wonderful books, helping hotels with the best restaurants, living a first-rate life. And I found that very exciting and captivating. And that's how my love for Indian food and restauranting in general began. But I think a lot of things you can't really inculcate into a child. You can only harbor the development of it. So in my case, my father could not introduce this love or passion for Indian food or restaurants into me. It was already there. It was simply nurtured and harbored further as a result of his direct actions. So I think in general, it's important for a father to play that role. I'm hoping that the actions that I do, even inadvertent actions, are having a positive impact on my child. Although I doubt my son will ever get into the restaurant business. He's only interested in gaming, so he wants to become a professional YouTube gamer. And I told him there's not much of a future in it, but he's saying, Dad, that's all I want to do. I said, okay, do that, but then become the best in the world at it. And I think one of the key things that my father taught me was the work ethic. The man was the hardest working man I've ever known. He used to work at least 14, 15 hours a day, every day that I can remember. And I'm talking about decades I've seen him work, and that's the way he was. And also a sense of responsibility for his craft. He was so passionate about Indian food that it was infectious. And because it was infectious, it got into me.
Thank you. In fact, I've seen your bonding, from few of the posts. You've been a very bonded family. I think that sort of really helps to grow the next generation. Today it's really inspiring, seeing the bond, because that sort of goes beyond anything. And, seeing the dad, as you were mentioning about the child wants to be the gaming expert. My son is about 11 years old. He does everyday life for 4 hours doing gaming video. And this is one of the most watched video in the country. But
that's very good. Send me a link after this. I'll show it to my son.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure, gaming is one of the most watched video today, YouTube video. Followed by
okay. I thought your son's gaming channel is one of the most watched.
No. He's still very, 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 very behind. He's just started it because of the lockdown. He got bored and then he started it. And then, as you said, whatever you do, no matter whatever future lies, do be the best in that. And then rest of it will follow. That's a very, very valuable piece of advice. So on that note, I would jump to the next question. For us, dining out is not only the socialization for Indians, for our family, for anybody in the society. It is an emotion. It's about bonding. It's about, being a part of the journey. So every restaurant of yours I have personally worked in across Hyderabad, Bombay, Bangalore. These are the three places I've been to your restaurants. And I have seen and experienced that very, very authentic touch of care, love, and bonding. And your brand is so very well associated to create that emotional connect while ensuring the global touch. Everything about your brand is so unique. I would love to know what has been the success sutra, or I generally ask this question to every guest of my show. The success formula has been for you.
So the formula is very, very vast. There's never one thing that can make a company or a concept succeed. There are usually 5, 6, 7 things, sometimes a dozen things that work together in cohesion, in synergy, to be able to make something succeed. But in our case, I think what's really driven us from day one, and if you look at all of our concepts, we've always tried to be highly original and innovative. So if Masala Library was unique in its own way by bringing molecular to the fine dining scene in India, Farzi Café tried to make Indian food playful and cool with the youth by introducing cutting edge technology, but more importantly, a great vibe of music, of a nice ambience. Our job with Farzi Café was to make Indian food cool amongst the youth because they were busy going to other kinds of concepts and restaurants, and we wanted Indian food to become their favorite thing. And I think we have succeeded in a way that modern Indian food now, in the cafe format, is one of the fastest growing genres, if not the fastest growing genre. And I think it's good that Farzi Café was able to be one of the first ones to do that. And, I think it's all about innovation. The success of a restaurant or a concept and the longevity is defined singularly by the amount of innovation it can introduce, because something that was cool in 2015 ceases to be cool in 2020. So how do you remain on the cutting edge? Well, it's through innovations, by having a great team of people that are jaded, that get bored very easily. So first you find people that are very innovative, and innovation is a result of boredom, right? You're bored with something and you then innovate. And I think it's very important to have that culture built in. So in my specific industry, the key success mantra, if I were to choose one, has to be innovation and constant change. Change is the only constant. If you want to succeed in life, as in business, you'll have to change with the times. And I think, especially in the culinary world, things change so fast that you have to be slightly ahead of the curve. You can't be too ahead of the curve. I'm also one of those guys who've tried to come up with concepts that were far ahead of their time and they failed. So I think it's important to be ahead of the curve, but not too far ahead of the curve. Constantly innovate, come up with new things, come up with things that surprise. Like you said, restauranting is an emotion. Indians spend more on eating out than on any other form of entertainment. The restaurant industry is 40 times larger than Bollywood. It's a humongous industry that feeds a lot of people, a lot of families, and pun intended, feeds customers as well, but it also feeds the families of the people that work there. So it is an emotion. So that's a very well said comment. I'll probably steal that from you and use that somewhere. But restauranting is an emotion, and the best way to succeed at it long term is by changing constantly. Every year, come up with something new. Put yourself in the position of your customer. What will wow them? What will surprise them again? And keep doing that. And if you keep doing that, you will have longevity. You will have success that lasts for decades and forever.
Every time I personally, Farzi Cafe has been one of my favorite, most choice. I don't know, every dine out or with the corporate get together, we never went bored to go there in the same place. People used to tell me why the same place, because it's so, I don't know, I could connect so well. Every time you have something new to offer, every time you had some innovation, and that's what, it was so unique. Thank you so much. That's really very beautifully articulated. I think emotional connect and innovation, when you bring together, the history begins, and that's what you have done it so beautifully. My next question, what has been your vision for the future plan for the Massive Restaurant Group?
Well, Massive is a constantly evolving organism. The COVID has obviously put some speed breakers in our path. We had a lot of restaurants under construction before the second lockdown. We signed a lot of very good locations because we got good deals in the first lockdown, which then started work after the first lockdown. And then some of them opened. We opened 4 restaurants in January. And then we were excited because January, February, and March were great periods for the restaurant industry. And despite the 50% occupancy, sales were returning. So we saw some good growth. However, the second lockdown is again put a hold. But I think what these two lockdowns have taught us, and not just us, I'm sure the rest of the industry as well, is that you have to be very nimble on your feet. You have to be very fast with your decision making. You cannot let these humps come and mess with your plans. So what we simply did was adapted. We have now started a lot of delivery where we did none. We never used to do any delivery at all from our restaurants, not even 1%. And now we're seeing 300, 400% week on week growth in some of our delivery concepts. We're also working towards developing new delivery only concepts that we'll be announcing soon across the country. And these are large scale concepts. These are kitchens that are going to open up in every part of the country. We're already in 9 cities, so we're going to start with these 9 and then go to others. But I think Massive Restaurants is now going to focus on multiple verticals. Apart from our dine-in business, which remains our core, we're going to look more aggressively towards international expansion, although we're already in 8 countries. And we'll be opening in Canada in, I think we were supposed to open in May, but obviously that's not going to happen. We're going to open in a couple of months as soon as situation gets better, visas get easier and all of that kind of stuff. But we're going to be in 8 countries. We're going to be in 9 countries, by in the next 2 months, including Canada. And so the international expansion is going to become an even bigger part. That'll be run through our franchise division. So some of them might not be company-owned stores. They'll be franchise stores, which is a good way to grow the business because you're able to go to these various geographies by finding really good local, passion partners. Delivery, like I said, is going to become a key part. Expansion within India, we're going to be a little bit more. We're going to be a little bit more careful. You might see some consolidation, but there are about 5 restaurants of ours that are already under construction at the moment. So we'll definitely finish those. And those all 5 are great deals, great locations, very low rent. So I'm definitely going to finish those up because, as I said, what I've learned in the COVID is that I'm never going to sign a location based on a rent that I'm not comfortable with, even in a COVID-like sales scenario. So think of the worst case scenario and then sign rents. That's another advice I like to give people. And that's the future for Massive. A lot of international expansion, a lot of offline expansion as well. But online is going to be the next key driver for growth for us, with a lot of our brands going online, but also a lot of new brands being developed specifically for the online space.
Okay. So this online space started only with the lockdown, like
Absolutely.
last year? Wow.
Not even with the first lockdown. We didn't do any delivery even in the first lockdown. Second lockdown forced us to start delivering, and we're seeing results that I'm shocked we didn't start earlier. I feel that we left a lot of money on the table by not starting earlier. There was a lot of demand for our product. We just did not take that step. And I'm glad that in May, mid-May, not even mid-May, beginning of May, we started our first really aggressive push towards delivery with Papaya in BKC and Papaya in Palladium in Bombay. And the result, like I told you, we're growing 300% week on week. So that's over 1,000% growth in a month from, something that we didn't do earlier. So we're just shocked. But anyway, we're excited. We found out about it. We're excited we took that step. And now we've come up with a very robust and extensive program to push delivery from all our stores.
Actually, so brilliant. In fact, I remembered, you always have taken care of your people so well. I remember one of the Times Food Award, when you were awarded being one of the restaurateur of the country. I remember Rekha being a very close friend of mine. You actually called her on the stage and you gave the entire credit. And that talks about the volume of a entrepreneur who leads with the team.
She deserves it. She's like, she's my family, and she and I have worked together now for 13, 14, 15 years. I don't even remember. I hope she's not watching this. She'll think, why aren't you remembering? But yeah, it's been, I think, at least 14 years that we've been working together. She's like my family. And to be honest, she does deserve all the credit. So it's not like I was making it up. It's the truth. And it's easy to tell the truth. And when you say the truth, it comes out with more conviction, right? So it sounds very real. And she is the reason why we do so much in the southern part of the country. She is the head of operations, but more than that, she's like the soul of our organization. She's like one of those people that literally motivates us to do better. And I can literally leave the entire South of India operations store, and I don't have a care in the world about that, because I know there's somebody standing at the gates taking care of everything with love and with passion. There's a term that says more loyal than the king, and she is like that. She cares more about this business than frankly even I do. And that's very lucky that I can find a person like that. Even one person like that is enough. And I'm lucky that I have a few in my company like that. So it's good.
I think people, always the leaders sort of, make the people also take the leadership. I know Rekha has been talking very highly about you, and then you also kind of inculcated that culture in the company. People give life to it. I know whenever I had my corporate guest, at 1 o'clock, 12:30, whenever, she was always available. That's the passion. I think that's what drive your brand. Amazing story. Thank you so much. My next question, before we move to the rapid fire, the last two questions I have. You have constantly innovated yourself, as you said, like giving the tweak to the innovations, launching your, launching your recent brand in the lockdown. Everything you do is very unique. You disrupted the way the industry works. What is that you do so differently, which puts you ahead of the race? While everybody is struggling, you are actually growing at 300%. What is that differentiator you bring into the table that kind of disrupts literally everything you do?
Well, I think you're giving me too much credit. I'm not sure if I deserve all that credit. I think I might have answered this question earlier when I mentioned the term innovation. And I think that's what we do as part of our core DNA. But so is a lot of other people. So we're definitely not the only ones innovating. I think the industry is full of great concepts, great restaurants, great restaurateurs, great chefs that are doing stuff that is truly cutting edge. But it's not just about the food. You see, innovation has to be incorporated in all aspects of the restaurant business because it's required if you want to survive and succeed. So I think whenever we look at a concept, whether it's delivery or anything else, we try and do something that has perhaps not been done before. Or if it has been done before, we try and bring our own little twist to it. So I think it's important to leave your own DNA in everything that you do, something that is a hallmark of your core culture, of the culture of your organization, of the way you've done your work. So I think in our case, perhaps, the attention to detail that our team puts in is truly praiseworthy. I mean, they're literally looking at every detail in a way that is shocking and it's incredibly painstaking. And I think that's what works. So if we're working on a delivery concept, you're going to see that it's not just about the food and the menu, but the packaging has been given a lot of effort. So again, I'm at the risk of repeating myself. It's all about innovation, attention to detail, and having a bunch of people that are as passionate about that particular initiative as you are as the founder. So because I cannot run anything, I'm sitting here. I haven't gone to Bombay, and they've launched, in my opinion, one of the most successful delivery launches in a long time for the industry. So they've done that on their own. I've simply been the guy on the phone here. So I think the team is one of those things that is, and not just the team, everybody has a team. It's about inspiring the team to have the same level of passion as you do. Complete ownership has to be taken because they're the ones eventually that drive it, and they're the true stewards of the project, of the initiative, and it's under their stewardship that it's going to grow or not grow. So you have to give them that, that level of injection of passion. And I'm lucky that I have passionate people already, so I don't even have to do much.
Now that you've brought that up, having a team which is equally inspired and passionate and injecting the passion quotient in them, I would love to pick that idea for the budding entrepreneur. How do you inject the passion and drive in your team? What do you do? Just give that simple.
It's a cultural thing. It flows down. You can't, like I said, inject. It's very easy to say inject, but it has to flow down from the top. They have to see the obsessive craziness almost, the obsession, the passion emanating from the top. And they have to feel like they're part of a bigger picture. It's not just a job. It's an initiative. It's not just a career. The restaurant industry does not build jobs. It creates careers. And a career is not a 9-to-5 thing. It's a lifestyle choice. So by action and by constant interaction is how you build culture and how you build the DNA of an organization. And the DNA is what then drives the organization forward. So if the DNA itself has innovation, passion, and attention to detail built in, then every new thing that company does, the DNA will take care of it. So I think it has to happen at the initial stages. It's very difficult to do in the middle, but that's where HR has to play a key role because you keep hiring new people. And there are a lot of people that were with you in the journey only a few years. There are obviously some that have been with you for over a decade. The ones that have been with you for over a decade have the culture inside them, but the new ones don't. So you have to inject that. How you inject that is through a lot of interaction, through a lot of good HR, really good HR, and by people noticing what the higher ups are doing. So I think it's a lot of effort that goes into injecting culture. It's not easy, but it should be done from the beginning.
Yeah, this piece of advice has been so valuable because I work for a venture capital fund, and we work with a lot of startup ecosystem in the country. And these questions I keep coming back, and that's where I think I'm going to put the snippet and play it to everybody, because this is a very, very valuable piece of information. The culture has to imbibe in the DNA of the company, and this has to be there from the beginning. You can't bring the changes in the middle. And by injecting the passion, obsession, and vision, and making every employee a part of it, I think that stood out about you. Thank you so much. And my last question, before I go to the rapid fire round, this is one of my favorite quote which you have given me. In the beginning of the conversation, you said that entrepreneurship is like jumping off the cliff and building an aircraft way down. What is your message for the young entrepreneurs? I'm sure in bits and pieces you've given it, but a lot of young entrepreneurs come and knock my door saying that, when we have to go down, but we have the passion and obsession, how do you bring it up? Because, it is true, right from the high paid job, you want to jump off the cliff and build the aircraft. You don't know whether it will ever fly. It will be stable. It will have accident. What is that? How do you build the aircraft from way down to way up?
I think be a rebel, be rebellious, question everything. Don't take anything at face value. All the greatest businesses have come out in the past few years. The multi-billion-dollar companies have been built by young kids who questioned the normal adage. They questioned what was happening around them, and they tried to make it better through the infusion of technology or through innovation or whatever. And I think it's very important for every entrepreneur to truly believe that what they're doing is going to have a bigger impact. Don't do it just for money. The profits will always follow. If you're running for the profits, they never come. If you're running for building something great, the profits will automatically come, and in huge amounts. So I think it's very important to be rebellious, to question everything, to innovate, to come up with how you can take something that you're passionate about and really make a change for the better. And if you can involve bigger things, moral things, things that involve a larger goal than just building a big company. In my case, that's the pursuit of Indian food and putting it on the global palette. If you can involve something larger than just the business aspect into your psyche, and then you pursue that goal or that business initiative, you might be able to get results even quicker. So I think that's my humble suggestion or advice, is that be a rebel and question everything and try and innovate as much as you can.
3 things very powerfully came out: challenging your status quo, being a rebel, questioning everything which you want to actually see, and persistently drive the passion. As you said, the moment you run behind money, the money will further run away. But if you really embrace the passion, everything will attract you like a magnet. Thank you so much. I've been enjoying this conversation so much. Don't feel like ending the show, but I have a few rapid fire questions, a little fun element which I bring in at the end of the show. So if you don't mind, can we jump onto the rapid fire round?
Please.
Okay. Now this is a tricky one, because being a restaurateur, you have passion for food and cuisine. I would love to know, what's your favorite most food and favorite most cuisine?
Indian food, without a doubt. Followed closely by Japanese, but my number one favorite cuisine in the world is Indian. I eat Indian food more often than any other cuisine, followed, like I said, closely by Japanese. But I think there's no comparison really with what our ancestors have done with our cuisine. I mean, look at the variety. Every state has its own food. Look at the sophistication. Look at the depth. Look at the culinary philosophy that binds it all together. We use 30 kinds of masalas, 4 stages of cooking for a single kebab. I mean, which other cuisine in the world does that? It's unparalleled. It's not even the person who comes second should actually be placed 10th. That's the level of depth of sophistication that our cuisine has, and I just hope everybody appreciates that. And it's up to us as Indians to put our food on the global palette by opening great restaurants across the world, and I think that's started to happen. It is our responsibility to Indian food to make sure that our food is represented in a very positive manner across the world. And I think the more high quality restaurants open, the more chefs do great stuff across the world, you'll soon realize that in every major city that you go to, out of the top 3 dining destinations, there will always be an Indian restaurant. And I think that's the main goal that I have, and I hope that we can achieve it one day.
I'm very sure one day you'll reach your goal. You're already there in 9 countries, and I know whenever I have been in US for my MBA, I have been waiting and then just trying to figure out an Indian restaurant which is affordable, which is sort of gives that emotional connect and the real taste. I think that's sort of you brought out beautifully. Thank you so much. My next question, is there any episode of your life that changed your direction towards it? There are multiple, I'm sure, but anything which you want to identify?
There are quite a few. That alter, that make you do things or steer you in a certain path. In my case, my father falling sick in 2000, just before I went for my MBA. He got a stroke, which left him paralyzed. I think that was a big turning point for me because before that I had a very sheltered life, and my father had given me a lot of support system. I was never alone. I always had him to rely on. But suddenly, with him being in bed and unable to function or move, I was thrust out into the open world, almost immediately, without any forward notice. And it made a man out of me because you're suddenly, from a whole lot of support system, a whole lot of shelter, now you're on your own, and you're out there in the big bad world without a plan. And I think that's a very scary thought for a 21 or 22. I think I was 22 at that time. I was 22 when my father had the stroke, and it was one of those things that changed the way I thought about life. It made me quickly finish my MBA and then come back to take care of my father's business. At that time, it was just a consulting business. He was not really, it was not of a large scale, but it taught me the importance of building brands, of owning intellectual property. So I think instances like this can have a deep impact on the way your life is, or rather circumstances push you in a certain direction. And had my father not gotten sick, I don't know if there would have been a Massive Restaurants, because I would have just been doing what he was doing. I would have tried to take his company forward, take forward his legacy, which I'm still trying. But it would not have been something that I've founded or built from my own hands from the ground up. So it's sad to say that my father's sickness got out the entrepreneur in me, but it's the truth. The circumstances push you towards a certain direction, and it makes you tougher. And I think that instance, that sickness, which lasted but he lived for 19 years. So we were able to give him the requisite care that he survived for 19 years on a wheelchair. It's rare with a stroke of that size in the brain for a man to survive that long, but it was his will to live. It was good family support, good medical care, combination of these 3 things, but most importantly, his will to live that made him live for 19 years. But yes, it was that was probably the biggest turning point in my life, where it changed the very course of my life.
I'm sure I've seen his interview with you during that condition in the wheelchair. Still he attended. He is an amazing, I have not met him, but the respect I have for him, I think many Indians at a different level. And I'm sure he must be listening this interview from the heavenly abode. Sorry, it's a little emotional, but I really haven't met, but the kind of work he has done, the kind of conversation I heard about him, he is a man of he's a true icon. Thank you so much, Zorawar. I want to know the next question. What is the best way to make you happy?
Good food. A good Sunday lunch. I'm getting late for my lunch, so we should now quickly move on to the rapid fire. But so Sunday lunch, food.
Oh, okay. It's almost Sunday lunch. We almost done then. Okay, good food. I'm sure Sunday lunch is waiting for you. If I had to ask you, rank yourself from 1 to 5, 1 being the highest, in the next 5 parameter, what would you rank? Entrepreneur, crusader of Indian food, adrenaline junkie, racer, or innovator?
I don't have this delusion of grandeur, so I will not mark myself on the entrepreneurship scale at all. But in terms of crusader to Indian food, if 1 to 5 is the scale and 1 is the highest, then I'm a 0, because that's how much I love Indian food and that's how much I crusade for Indian food. You should have said 5 as being the highest, but you said 1 being the highest. If you had said 5 being the highest, I would have said number 10, because that's how much I care about Indian food. and that's how much I've been crusading for it for the past 12 to 14 years. And I think the other aspects, those are hobbies, and I am an adrenaline junkie. I always have been. I love speed, I love thrills, I love roller coasters, I love doing adventure stuff. That's part of my, in a way, that's part of what makes me happy. But I think also something that gives me perhaps immeasurable happiness is just family time. With my kids. I have two kids, a 9-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl, and they are, the love of my life. I mean, I guess it's for all parents, but if you measure happiness, what they do, run around with stuff, crazy stuff that they keep doing all day, just watching that perhaps gives me more happiness than any form of adventure sport, any form of racing on the racetrack, any of that. So I think I don't want to rate myself on the entrepreneur scale, but adrenaline junkie, if one is the highest, one, racing, if one is the highest, one, crusader for Indian food, if one is the highest, 0, because that's how much I love Indian food and how much I'm trying to fight for it. But yeah, so that's the way. That's how.
Did you win all the debate competition in the school or college? It's literally difficult to kind of arrest you in any word. You are just way too good.
My brother was the better debater. My brother, I still can't win a debate against him because he never gives up. He'll keep that debate going on for 1 year, and I don't have the patience for it. So my brother was a very good debater, and he actually did win in school. So I was not that good of a debater. Like I said, I'm a late bloomer. Everything that I'm good at today, I was not good at while growing up, somehow.
Things change along with the course of life. And I must say that you're blessed with one of the most beautiful family. I've seen the pictures of, that really, may God bless. The last two questions before we close the session is that, what's your favorite thing, maybe favorite hobby, which you pursue in your pastime?
There are two. It's building computers and racing cars. These are the two things that I love doing more than anything in terms of hobbies. They keep me interested. They keep me sane, because it's very important to have a hobby if you want to be happy, especially during this lockdown. I can't go and race cars, but at least I can tinker around with them. I'm part of the essential services, and we're doing a lot of COVID-related relief work. So I'm allowed to drive. So the good thing is I'm still able to drive in the lockdown. A computer is the best thing to do during a lockdown anyway. So I've actually built a computer for my son during the lockdown. Luckily, I had the parts bought in before, because since the lockdown, no parts are available. So I had the parts. I built a computer for him during the lockdown, which is probably a mistake because the guy's now addicted to it, and all he does all day is play on that computer. So it was probably a big mistake. But so computers and cars, those are the two things that give me the most happiness in terms of a hobby. They keep me sane, and they keep me with something interesting to look forward to at the end of the day.
Amazing, you're multifaceted. You have built a computer, you race, you participate in different racing. I didn't know this part of your personality. Oh my God. I think jack of all trades and master of all as well. On the last question, during lockdown, would you prefer a weekend in your room in front of Netflix with a glass of wine, or would you prefer to go out in friend's place in a private party and chat with them?
No, it'll be so to be very honest, I would prefer the party, but I would not do it because it's irresponsible to do that. I would not do it, but any day I would prefer. I am not a big fan of. I love Netflix for what it does and how it's changed the game and how it's the biggest disruption company of all time. And I have a lot of respect for that, but I'm not a big fan. I don't have the patience for watching TV, and I'm not a wine drinker. I'm more of a whiskey drinker. But that being said, I think going out to my friend's place would be a lot more fun, but I would not do it because it's not responsible to do so. So that's my answer for that.
Thank you so much. I had one of the most wonderful time in this interview. Thank you for giving your Sunday afternoon. It's been really a true honor and pleasure to host this show. And thanks for so many invaluable lessons which actually entrepreneur can learn tomorrow, and the new restaurateur and a lot of other people. I look forward maybe having you another day for another show. Thank you so much. It's been a real true pleasure and honor, and wishing you all the best, happy weekend, and great luck in whatever you do.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe and hit the bell notification so that next time you get notified whenever I upload the next video. Thank you.